Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, How to Modernize Your Applications and Drive Business Value with Amazon Aurora. My name is Chuck Edwards, and I'm the Global Lead for AWS Database Partners, and thanks very much for your time today. So we all know that more and more business models are embracing the cloud. From SaaS applications like Salesforce to new and innovative business models like Airbnb and Netflix, the cloud is becoming a more ubiquitous part of application development and delivery. And customer adoption of the cloud has been so rapid and so strong that in 2017, as you can see from this quote here, IDC reported that all ISVs who want to stay relevant to their customers need to have some sort of cloud strategy or adopt the cloud in some way. And backing up IDC's assertion, we see additional data from Gartner. Gartner reports that 28% of spending within key enterprise IT markets will shift to the cloud by 2022, up from 19% in 2018. And they also report that by 2020, all new entrants and 80% of historical software vendors will offer subscription-based business models as well. And so what does this mean if you're an ISV? So if you're an ISV thinking about your move to the cloud, there's a few things that you can think about. At AWS, we see successful ISVs, those that are growing their business in the cloud is what I mean by successful, take a more modern approach to software development. And this is an approach to designing, building, and managing applications that enables faster innovation and increased customer responsiveness. The best practices of modern application development arose from our experience serving millions of customers and building applications for Amazon.com. And we've observed common approaches that enable our customers to increase agility and build better applications that support the success of their businesses. So why are ISVs modernizing applications on the cloud? They're rethinking their applications because the cloud lets them move faster and creates a lot more value for their customers at a lower cost. Things like pay-as-you-go pricing and on-demand infrastructure mean that ISVs don't have to pay for more than they use, which are savings that can then be passed on to their customers. They can also build in global resiliency and durability without paying expensive license fees for disaster recovery and high availability features for their software. And they can scale globally as fast or as slowly as they want without deploying hefty capital expenditures, not just for hardware, but upfront licensing costs as well, keeping innovation high and costs low for their customers. So while different ISVs approach these practices from different starting points, we do see some commonalities. One of the most common starting points is to move away from the expense and restrictions of commercial databases, which often increases customers' application cost of ownership while adding little actual business value. ISVs who can avoid these cost restrictions have an advantage when considering the global market of millions of AWS customers. Because customers still expect performance, availability, and durability, but they don't expect to purchase additional database licenses for these behaviors. Customers expect ISVs to support their own modern development practices as they move their infrastructure to the cloud. And they definitely look for flexibility and speed of deployment that's difficult or impossible to achieve on-premise. Commercial databases specifically present some fundamental challenges when considering a cloud deployment strategy. Scaling and agility is limited to hardware availability, location, and even license availability and costs. Imagine a customer deploying your software with single points of failure just because they don't want to spend additional money on database licenses. And as customers move to the cloud, on-premise database solutions often don't natively integrate, forcing customers and ISVs to build or buy the integration that they need. So we received a lot of feedback from customers and from ISVs who listen to their customer about what they really need in cloud-native database solution. They tell us that commercial databases like Oracle and SQL Server have lots of amazing features, but they come at a really high price, many times as add-ons and not included in the base product. And ultimately, these costs, whether they're used or not, must be passed through to the end customer, raising the total cost of ownership for an ISV's application without adding direct business value in many cases. As customers and ISVs alike rethink their applications for the cloud and AWS, they've made it clear to us what's important. They don't want a huge list of features that they may or may not use. They want speed of deployment, hyperscale performance, cloud integration, and they definitely don't want to pay huge upfront licensing and punitive ongoing support costs just to run their business applications in the cloud. And as we can see from this data, again from IDC, they're clearly showing us that relational database in the cloud is projected to far outpace on-premise deployments. By 2021, 34% of worldwide relational database systems will have moved to the cloud as to 2.6% on-premise. And this is a projection, but this is definitely showing the trend as seen by IDC. So this growing trend and customer feedback is why we built Amazon Aurora, which delivers the performance of commercial-grade databases with the pricing, freedom, and flexibility of open-source databases. Amazon Aurora is a MySQL and Postgres compatible relational database built for the cloud that combines the performance and availability of high-end commercial databases with the simplicity and cost-effectiveness of open-source databases. Aurora has 5 times the performance of standard MySQL and 3 times the performance of standard Postgres with the security, availability, and reliability of commercial-grade databases at 1/10 the cost. Aurora is also fully managed with repeatable operational tasks like provisioning, patching, backups, and even automatic failover to secondary sites. Finally, Aurora is an integrated cloud-native database with features like Lambda and S3 integration and serverless deployments, where the database instance computing power can grow and shrink on demand. Customer reaction to Aurora has been overwhelming, making it the fastest growing service in the history of AWS. In 2015, Aurora already had thousands of customers, including enterprises like NBC Universal, PG&E, and the United Nations. In 2016, the number of customers grew by 3.5 times, with household names like Netflix, LexisNexis, and Ticketmaster joining the list. And in 2017, the number of customers grew by 2.5 times, with organizations like Expedia, NASDAQ, Verizon, CBS Interactive, Dow Jones, and Hulu running their business-critical workloads on Aurora. Today, we have tens of thousands of enterprises and startups running their applications on Aurora. Using Amazon Aurora as a foundation for ISV software provides a number of strategic benefits. First, AWS has millions of customers, and they consistently choose solutions that do not require purchase and maintenance of commercial databases. Second, removing the cost of commercial database license can reduce customer TCO for ISV software, regardless of a SaaS or single-tenant deployment model. Third, eliminating these heavy upfront costs from ISVs and their customers, embracing the pay-as-you-go resourcing model opens the door for more flexibility in deployment and pricing options that customers expect in the cloud. And finally, Aurora's native integration with other AWS services opens the door for innovation that really matters to ISV customers, including AWS Analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning services. And it's not just cloud-native startups embracing Aurora. Many familiar ISVs like BMC and Infor offer Aurora-based or Aurora-compatible versions of their software. So to help the growing community of ISVs who are modernizing their offerings with Amazon Aurora, in 2018, AWS launched the Database Ready Program. Database Ready provides the people, tools, and support that ISVs have asked for to help them deliver a cloud-native Amazon Aurora-based offering to their customers. The program mission is to help ISVs build profitable cloud-native solutions faster with Amazon Aurora. The program provides some standard benefits. While building, ISVs have access to technical support from both AWS and our Database Ready system integrator partners, as well as service credits to help offset development costs. When an application is ready for customers, we'll feature on the Database Ready webpage, and we also may make it ready for launch through AWS Marketplace if that makes sense for the ISV. Finally, Database Ready can help accelerate net new and legacy customer adoption of your Aurora platform through marketing development funds and go-to-market promotion and support. Taking a closer look at some of our Aurora-enabled ISVs, Alfresco found they could scale 10 times on Aurora MySQL over their self-managed MySQL deployments. Alfresco now scales to over 1 billion documents with a throughput of 3 billion documents per hour on their Aurora MySQL deployment. And BMC recently certified their Remedy application to run on Aurora Postgres. BMC Remedy customers who are paying thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for SQL Server or Oracle licenses can now deploy Remedy on AWS and drop those licensing costs. And now I'll hand this off to Tolga Tarhan with Aunica, one of our Database Ready SI partners, who's going to talk more about their specific offering and how they work with ISVs to modernize their applications on AWS and Amazon Aurora.
Thanks, Chuck. Hi, everyone. My name is Tolga Tarhan, and I'm the CTO of Aunica. For the next few minutes, I'd like to talk about how ISVs can leverage AWS to reduce customer friction increase satisfaction, and growth. Before we dive in, just a quick introduction to Anika. We're one of the largest and fastest growing AWS Premier Consulting partners, and uniquely, we're 100% focused on AWS. We hold 9 competencies, thousands of customer engagements, and have an MSP practice as well. We help bring the innovative power of the cloud to our customers every day. Throughout this conversation, I'm going to talk about updating your software to become more cloud native. But I think this warrants a quick definition. What do we mean by cloud native? This is actually easier to describe as what we don't mean. We certainly don't mean rewriting all of your software. But we also don't think you should treat the cloud exactly as you would a data center. So rather, becoming cloud native is about adopting the right cloud technology for each workload and evaluating the best way for a given application to operate in the cloud. So why would we do this? Well, your customers are increasingly taking a cloud-first approach to how they build infrastructure and deploy applications. By making it simple and regimented for customers to deploy your applications in the cloud, your products can more effectively tap into the incredible growth of AWS. By removing barriers to adoption, and especially barriers to consumers test driving your software, you can remove a ton of friction from the sales process. For example, take an application that's designed to run on Oracle on-prem today. Customers need to procure hardware or provision virtual machines. Then they need to install and configure database software and manage that database software, including its backups, its availability, etc. And then finally, your customers need to install and configure your software. All of this before they've really gained any value from your product. All of this just wasted time and energy. And then beyond that initial installation, customers don't want to manage commercial database licenses. They don't want to manage backups. They don't want to manage availability. All these things are just extra work for customers before they can adopt your software. When you adopt a more cloud-native approach, customers don't need to manage third-party databases because your products will take advantage of fully managed databases such as Aurora. And your customers don't even need to manage software installation because you'll provide all of the deployment automation to your customers to launch fully working environments with a single click. You might even take it further and allow procurement via AWS Marketplace. Okay, so now you've decided your application should become more cloud native. Let's talk about the 3 most important considerations. As I alluded to earlier, the cloud is not a data center, and treating it as one reduces the full potential of the cloud. So the first consideration is architectural design. Which services do you use? How do you manage redundancy and scalability? And how does your application look in the cloud? Just as important, though, is designing to meet security and compliance requirements from day one. Your architectural approach and design need to clearly meet the security and compliance needs of your most discerning customers. And then, of course, selecting the right architecture and the right AWS services to maximize the efficiency of your application in the cloud, keeping infrastructure costs low and helping customers more easily adopt your application. Getting this right requires a bit of upfront investment, but taking away the time and energy of your team, who are experts in your product and your industry, to work on becoming more cloud native is often a hard business choice. And that's where partners like Anika come in. We help with all the undifferentiated heavy lifting, allowing your applications to become more cloud native while allowing your team to continue to focus on what makes your applications great. So let's dive into those just a little bit deeper. As I mentioned earlier, the first step is to understand your application architecture and how that maps to AWS. Which services can we use to best complement your applications and ensure we achieve high performance, availability, and elasticity? We also need to consider AWS best practices, both because it results in better architecture, but also because your customers will want to see that your design is first class on AWS. This is also where we consider deployment automation. At the very least, you should ship your application as deployable CloudFormation templates that deploy everything needed to get running. And in the best case, you could make these templates available on the marketplace, enabling a new procurement option for your customers. In this part of a project, our team will engage with your team to map these architectural principles and best practices to your application. And then we'll dive in and do engineering work alongside your team. Security is the next consideration. The right architecture on AWS will consider the compliance frameworks and appropriate policy controls and mappings right up front. Depending on your application's target customer and industry, your customers will want to use your application in a way that impacts one or more of these compliance frameworks. And giving your customers the documentation to support how your deployment and your application in AWS meets these requirements reduces yet another barrier to entry and another barrier to sale for your customers. And then finally, ensuring that your application is as elastic as possible, consuming as little resource as possible, makes it that much easier for customers to make the decision to move forward with adopting your application. Here, we're going to help your team understand what it takes to design applications that scale seamlessly, both horizontally and vertically. And then we're going to ensure that the most effective AWS services are mapped to various requirements of your application. Let's look at a customer that took this all the way. So Alistair Group is an East Africa-based company. They move 650,000 tons of cargo per year across 14 countries in Africa. They started as a typical startup with manual processes and grew over time to need software to manage their contractors, drivers, trucks, loads. So Annika worked with Alistair to build a mobile and web application, as well as a serverless backend to support the application. So this is an example of kind of going all the way. There are no EC2 instances, and services such as Lambda and API Gateway are used to build the application logic, and then Angular is used to build the web front end. Here we're using Aurora and Elasticsearch together. Aurora as the primary persistent data store, but then Elasticsearch for some specialized search capabilities and analytics. So just a quick peek at the architecture. You can see on the left side, we have a mobile app and a web application. And then you can see how we're leveraging all these serverless services, from API Gateway to Cognito to IoT to Aurora and Elasticsearch. We have an entire infrastructure that requires no management of actual servers. Your application can fit into this kind of model by leveraging the concepts that I've described over the past few slides, and the cost of operating these applications for your customers can be greatly reduced, including the cost of sort of the management burden as well. So thank you all for spending the last few minutes with me. I look forward to talking to all of you more as your cloud native journey continues.